welcome. You're watching FYI. I'm Rishika Barwa. The Pfizer vaccine for the coronavirus, which has shown 95% efficacy, is now the world's first coronavirus vaccine to get emergency use authorization in the UK. It's priced at around $20 per dose. It needs cold storage chain of around minus 70 degrees. This has made it a distant possibility as far as India is concerned. So what does this big news, perhaps the biggest news of 2020, what does it mean for us here in India? What is the UK's vaccine plan, and will a similar plan be implemented here in India? So today, in part 2 of everything you need to know about vaccines, we'll try and understand the process. We'll try and simplify humanity's first big win over the coronavirus. So the big question I think that's on everyone's mind at the moment is, can India get the Pfizer vaccine? Well, for a vaccine to be allowed in India, firstly, it should have undergone trials in India. The Pfizer vaccine hasn't. Pfizer has not yet applied for any license to conduct clinical trials in India either. So even if the Pfizer company partners with any Indian company now, it will take some time for the vaccine to come to India, because remember, Pfizer already has tie-ups with the United States, with the UK, also with several countries in Europe. Now, India had spoken with Pfizer in August, but there's been no development since then. India, of course, is focused on 5 vaccine candidates. Now, Serum Institute of India manufacturing the Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine. Covishield is the front runner. Bharat-BioNTech's Covaxin is an extremely promising candidate as well as the Zydus Cadila vaccine. These are all vaccines that are in different stages of development and trial here in India. Now, why is it that the Pfizer vaccine is extremely challenging and perhaps only suited for colder countries? The Pfizer vaccine transportation, now it is shipped on dry ice in a specialized packaging container at minus 70 degree freezers, 50 degrees cooler than what a typical home freezer is. So you can understand the logistical nightmare that it's going to be to bring such a vaccine to India and disseminate it to our rural population, for instance. Now, there are GPS-enabled thermal sensors that track the location and temperature of each shipment of the vaccine. Remember, these ultra-low temperature freezers, they can extend the shelf life of the vaccine for up to 6 months. It can be stored for 5 days, say, in a hospital refrigerator at 2 to 8 degrees centigrade. But now here is the key. Now, temporary storage can take place for 15 days. But once the Pfizer vaccine is thawed and stored under 2 to 8 degrees Celsius conditions, these vials cannot be refrozen. So the shelf life of the vaccine is also something which is extremely tricky, making it an impossibility almost for developing countries like ours or tropical hot countries like ours. It's almost like the Pfizer vaccine technologically is only suited to colder countries or very developed countries. Now, here's the interesting bit. What can India learn from the UK vaccine delivery plan? And will our delivery plan, for instance, look similar? The UK has set 3 modes of delivery. First, it's going to go into hospitals which have cold storage facilities. There are also vaccination centers that are already being set up where people can go and get themselves vaccinated. These will presumably have all of the conditions that are needed to store this vaccine. And finally, in the 3rd stage of the rollout, there will be a community rollout for these vaccines at local pharmacies. The UK, for instance, already has a plan of action on who will get the vaccine first. They have a long list that has already been sorted out back in September. So older adults in care homes, care home workers, those who are 80 and above, healthcare and social care workers are on the top of the priority list to get the vaccine. Now, of course, there are a whole host of questions. Can an effective vaccine be developed in 10 months? Sometimes vaccines take as long as 10 years to develop. We've developed this vaccine, the world's developed this vaccine in a record time of just 10 months. That has made people insecure. More importantly, what is emergency use authorization? Should you opt to get inoculated, if you fit in the criteria, to a vaccine that has emergency use authorization? What does this actually mean? Today on FYI, we'll try and answer some of these basic questions. We'll also try and understand this big news from an India point of view. Well, joining me on the broadcast, we have Dr. Aishita Dwivedi. She's an assistant professor of cardiology at the Lenox Hill Hospital, Northwell in New York. Thank you very much for being with us. We have Dr. Padma Srivastava, Chief of Neuroscience Center at AIIMS. She's also participated in one of the major vaccine trials taking place in India. So we'll ask her a whole bunch of questions on that as well. And we have Dr. Rakesh Verma, the Additional Director General of Health Services, the DGHS Government of India, also Professor of Cardiology at the Safdarjung Hospital, and Dr. Rajesh Parekh, the Director of Medical Research, Jaslok Hospital, also the co-author of a book on the coronavirus. Thank you all very much for being with us on the show. It's an extremely exciting development that's taken place, and I think there are a lot of questions that viewers have on what this means for India. Dr. Dwivedi, if I can begin by asking you, you're based in New York. Before we get down to what this means for India, this is a vaccine that has been developed in the US. It's got emergency use authorization in the UK. How are you looking at this news?
I think we're all thrilled to see this development. Obviously, this is a new technology. This is an mRNA vaccine, which is really a first of a kind, as is the Moderna vaccine, which was developed in the US as well. And I think so far we remain cautiously optimistic, and we're still waiting for the peer-reviewed data to come out. The FDA in the US is going to conduct their own review of the data and the safety of this vaccine. But I do believe that they plan to roll out the vaccination to highest priority people, like healthcare workers, as well as citizens in long-term care facilities who are the most vulnerable population by the end of December and beginning January.
Right. I want to ask you a quick follow-up question that a lot of our viewers have asked actually. A vaccine being developed in record time of just 10 months. Does this make experts like yourself, question the process, perhaps a little doubtful, or is this just the miracle that we needed? How do you look at it?
I think we all are pleasantly surprised at the sort of the expeditious development of this vaccine for sure. Historically, we don't have any other disease that we have developed a vaccine for this expeditiously, definitely. But I have to say that the safety data so far shows that there have been no severe cases of side effects.
Yes.
And the side effects that have been documented are mostly mild, like injection site soreness or fatigue that you even get with other vaccinations like flu vaccine.
Okay. So
and
you're saying it's safe
vaccine,
and people needn't worry about the fact that it's a vaccine that's been developed in 10 months.
Well, so far no severe cases have been noted, and I think we still await the peer-reviewed evaluation of the data. I have to say that the 30,000 cases in the Moderna vaccine, there were 95 side effects documented, and out of that, 90 were actually within the placebo arm.
Okay.
So I think so far the data looks promising, but we have to evaluate it further.
All right. So data further needs to be evaluated. Dr. Padma Srivastava, if I can come to you. This is exciting news even for us here in India. Now, you've, of course, apart from the fact that you're a medical health expert, you're a doctor, you've also participated in the Covaxin phase 3 clinical trials, which Pfizer-BioNTech is in fact conducting. My question to you is very simple. Is it safe, for instance, to get inoculated by a vaccine that has been approved in this, emergency use authorization category? This is the buzzword these days. Explain what this means to our viewers, and, a vaccine that will come to India presumably, within the next few months. Is it going to be safe?
Yeah, I would think so, because I don't think there's anybody who's going to compromise on safety versus the efficacy parameters. In fact, there is, primum non shared, primarily do no harm. So that is the basic tenet, the principle of any healthcare delivery system. Said that though, these are challenging times, like nothing has happened, nothing like this has happened in the last century. So this is a learning curve, and in the learning curve, I think this is the best that humanity could come up to. And hats off to all the prowess of science and technology across the world who had been able to, get collectively and find a solution. And, I know we will probably talk about the Pfizer bit a little later, but
Yes.
this very news for the humanity is like a shot in the arm, the confidence that we are looking at the end of a tunnel at some point of time. And I
Yes.
was listening to Professor Vijay Raghavan in the morning today, and he said that probably, with this, say, probably you would also be getting, India will also be looking at one of the vaccines which are currently in the phase 3 and completing the phase
Yes.
3 would be available in the first part of January 2021. And that's really encouraging.
Encouraging
you look
news.
at the
Yes.
safety part, yes, it is safe. You're looking at me, I'm okay. I don't know what I received. I may have received placebo. It's a
Okay.
randomized controlled trial.
Right.
However, said that being part of science and getting good.
Okay. We're going to try and re-establish that line
Very
with you
important.
because we're losing the connection with you. But I think, you're very optimistic, and I think that that's also, a little bit of good news that we all need to share. But Dr. Rakesh Verma, if I can come to you at the moment, the Pfizer vaccine is unlikely that it will come to India. In which case, this is news, of course, that is being looked at with a lot of excitement at the moment. But can a vaccine that hasn't been tried in India come to India? Is that something that is even possible? Because many experts believe that India will not have one vaccine, but India might actually, over the course of 2021, see multiple vaccines that do get approved be administered to its population.
Ms. Barua, what question you have used is a very pertinent and right question. I must say that I must congratulate you that your media is very well aware of the geographical situation of this country. It's a very vast country and it got various variations from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, from Far East to Kutch in the north, west. So the logistics and everything has to be made. And it's a very huge country of almost 130 crores. So one vaccine may not be able to suffice. The government of India at the highest level of Honorable Prime Minister and Honorable Health Minister and our Honorable Health Secretary is almost on the daily basis discussing various pros and cons and how many vaccines to use, which vaccine in which area, considering the other logistic and other specific qualities, up and shortcomings of the vaccine that we hear from you and all newspapers and media also. And scientific literature is also saying some vaccine is requiring minus 70 degrees, other vaccine is requiring minus 8, other may require minus 30, and one or two vaccines may not require any temperature regulation for storage and transportation. So situation is three different things. First is efficacy for Indian subcontinent. Then
But very simply, doctor, if I can just ask you, can a vaccine that has not been tried in India come to India? Is it a possibility?
No, that is you're asking a question which Government of India, I am very sure that with the regulatory authorities being independent of the government regulations would not allow.
Right.
I tell you, the government of India is very stringent, very strict in ensuring that only the safest product reaches its citizen.
Okay.
And government would not do any variation on any abbreviation at all in this aspect.
Okay.
Rest assured.
All right. Dr. Rajesh Parikh, I think the other big question that is on everyone's mind is how long will vaccine immunity last? Once you've been given the vaccine shot, we know that most of these vaccines, the Pfizer vaccine or even the Oxford AstraZeneca among the front runners in India, they are all 2-dose vaccines. They're going to have to require 2 shots. But how long will vaccine immunity last? Once you've been given the vaccine, can you roam around without a mask?
On kar liya?
Well, thank you, Rishika, for having me on the program. Always a pleasure to be with you. And thank you for your comprehensive coverage on the Pfizer vaccine. I was actually wondering whether you just have rhetorical questions to ask us since you had covered it so extensively. But you do have a question that you haven't covered. That's the duration of the immunity. Well, it's anybody's guess now. Obviously, the vaccine hasn't been around long enough for us to have clarity on the duration of the immunity. But at present, it is estimated that it would be up to a year. It could be longer.
Right.
There's just one caveat that I'd like to add to the polemics on the efficacy of the vaccine, and that is there is a considerable distinction between efficacy and effectiveness. What we should really be concerned about on the macro scale is the effectiveness of the vaccine. Efficacy is established in regionally controlled research circumstances in clinical trials where patients are monitored virtually every day, if not more often. Effectiveness is what happens in the real world. It poses its own unique problems, that of maintaining the cold chain, distribution, and various other factors. So the effectiveness remains to be seen. The effectiveness in our circumstances is far from established, but of course, hopefully, it'll work over a period of several months at least.
Dr. Srivastav, the other important point that Dr. Parikh raises is about the distribution of the vaccine, which one will come to realize is actually as important a process as the development is. We've covered the development of the different vaccines over the course of the last few months, but the questions now are going to be on what's the vaccine plan. And the reason that I put out those graphics on the UK's vaccine delivery plan is essentially to understand whether a similar plan will be put in place in India. Dr. Srivastav, what's your understanding? Will there be a categorization that will be laid out, like a 3-phase plan that the UK has put out? Will we see a similar practice here in India?
Yeah, so what I understand is that one is, as Dr. Parikh said, one is the viability of the whole, rollout, as well as being optimal for a country like India with unique economic and geographic barriers. So said that, therefore, the rollout and the phasing as well as the prioritization will be different for Indian. So here you probably won't have this cohort of the very, very elderly, because we don't have that very, very elderly population, a significant percentage, not the elderly homes or the caregivers. You certainly have the frontline workers, you'll have the healthcare workers, and then you have those who would be most critical if they get the COVID stood out to reduce the mortality. Said that again, I think two important points, Suchita, is one is the getting a critical mass vaccinated so that the transmission and the effectiveness of the vaccination would be optimal. And the other thing is breaking the critical point in the chain. So, looking at those two important things, breaking the chain and having a critical mass vaccinated, the phases would then be designed. And I think Indian rollout, the phasing would be tuned to the challenges of Indian subcontinent rather than what is being absolutely parallel to what is being done in the UK.
Okay. Dr. Aishita, the other big question at the moment is, what does the vaccine mean for critical care patients? There are patients we've seen who have been on prolonged life support or oxygen support, those who are with comorbidities. As we understand it, as a lay person, the science of vaccine is about prevention, not so much about cure. So what does the news about a COVID vaccine mean for those patients, who are battling life and death at the moment?
Yes, definitely. I think you hit the nail on the head that the vaccine is about prevention and not cure. So people who are actively hospitalized fighting the infection, obviously this vaccine is not studied in those patients and nor at this point indicated in those patients. Now, the other question is, if you had COVID a couple months ago and you recovered, should you get the vaccine? Currently, the major consensus is yes, they will be offering and encouraging people, even those who have recovered from COVID-19, to get the vaccine, because just because you had the infection does not mean that you have a lasting immunity. And as one of the other doctors on the panel said, that even after you get the vaccine, we don't know how long the immunity would last for. So perhaps this might be an annual vaccination that we might be recommending. So even though you have recovered from the disease, we do recommend it. And I would like to stress there's a difference between efficacy and sterilization. The vaccine really prevents you from getting the infection, but it doesn't necessarily at this point prevent you from giving the infection to other people asymptomatically. So I think we should still continue to wear masks, still continue to practice good hygiene, even if you're vaccinated, because you could, even though you might not get infected, you may still pass it on to someone who may be vulnerable. and make them very sick.
All right. Dr. Padma, because we've talked about vulnerable sections and you've participated in a clinical trial yourself, the UK vaccine, for instance, the Pfizer vaccine, and the advisory that's been put in place for the UK is that those kids under the age of 16 and pregnant women will not be given this vaccine because one doesn't still know what the effect of the vaccine will be on pregnant women. So the question that I'm trying to get to is, our vaccines that are being developed here in India, like Covaxin, you participated in the trial, are we testing it on vulnerable populations as well?
So the vulnerable population still phase 2, as I understand, though I'm not involved in the design of the trial.
Yes, of course.
As I understand, in phase 2, it was all healthy adults.
Right.
So they did not go into very elderly or the ones with the comorbid. But the phase 3 is almost trying to take in all the cohorts of a real world. So you do have elderly, you do have comorbid, and you do have adults. But I don't think that even this would actually take in children or pregnant women. Pregnancy, lactation, and children, in general, whether it is a vaccine trial or a drug trial, in the first few phases are generally excluded for reasons more than one, because we're still on the learning curve. However, said that, in phase 3, we have all the other cohorts, that is elderly and comorbid.
That's left for phase
included.
3. Very quickly then, timeline. You said the beginning of January is when India could anticipate a rollout of the vaccine?
Yes, fingers crossed, toes crossed.
Dr. Parikh, would you agree?
Yes, I would.
Beginning of January?
I would imagine so, yes.
That's a month away. Dr. Rakesh Verma, are you getting similar... have you heard similar things? Is the government actually planning a rollout as early as beginning of January?
It is to await the sanction, permission, express permission from the regulatory agencies which government has put in place. So we have to wait a green signal from the regulatory authorities, and they are very, very conscious of the fact that the phase 3 trials should have all walks of life from the Indian citizen, and the vaccine should prove very, very safe. Okay? So it is not decision of the government alone. It will depend on the outcome from regulatory agencies, regulatory authorities, which are mandatory in this country.
All right. So it's safety over speed of vaccine delivery, and I think that perhaps is the best way to go forward. Thank you all very much for joining us.
But before you finish, I must tell you that as of today, the vaccine is the mask. As of today, please don't give up on the hope of a vaccine coming. Don't give up the norms of using mask, social distancing, medical distancing.
Yes. Thank you for that. I think that's very, very important. Even if you do get a vaccine, Dr. Aishta said that as well. Even if you do get a vaccine, for the foreseeable future, you're still going to have to wear a mask and maintain social distancing.
When the vaccine comes.
All right. Thank you all very much. It's been a fascinating conversation. It's a fascinating time. It is our first little bit of a win against the virus, and we hope that we've been able to break down and explain just what this development means in India. Thanks so much for watching.